So good afternoon, everybody. It's always a joy to come to you every Sunday at 3 p.m. It's me, your host, Pauline, on this, which came up, this program that we brought up and conversation that we came up with, especially in the response, due to the response of the teenage pregnancies. And we agreed we'll be talking about issues to do with teenagers and sex. And so we had a mother sometime earlier, and some 2 weeks ago, then we had two teenagers last Sunday, and they joined us and we had a conversation. We wanted to hear, so what are the teenagers saying? Because yes, we have what we think, what we are saying, but what is it that they were saying? And that was last Sunday. And so this Sunday, I'm very privileged, I must say, to host Dr. Wahome Ngari, who is a gynecologist, and I'm really happy to host him, and he agreed. We are having a sign language interpreter this afternoon. We're having a challenge with her internet, but I'm sure she's gonna catch up as we continue. Yeah, so we have Elizabeth Wanjiko who will be interpreting for us for those who use sign language. So we are really happy. So let me welcome you to say hello to my viewers, Dr. Wahome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and young people. I'm happy to be here.
Wow, wonderful. So yeah, definitely we have young people also who are following, and I know everybody will have a word this afternoon. A parent out there, you're listening. I think for me, why I'm very happy to have you, Dr. Wahome, first of all, is maybe your age, because like I was telling you just before we started this, is that when younger people talk about it, I could be younger, another gentleman is younger. Yes, it goes forth, but it has more weight when we get an older person telling us the same things that we are probably saying because of your experience and everything. So I think the first thing I want to ask you, Daktari, what is your take on the media publication and the reality of teenage pregnancies?
It breaks my heart, Pauline, to see young teenage mothers. And it's really an unfortunate thing that we must address as a nation, because I don't think that is what we want. We want the young people to understand the value and place of sexual intercourse so that they can wait for the right time. And I would like to say it right here at the beginning that the issue we are discussing is not whether sex is good or bad. Sex is very good. Sex is a gift that we are given by God Himself. And the only thing we are discussing amongst us as parents and with the children is the timing. When is the right time to start engaging in matters of sex? That is actually just the issue. So it breaks my heart to see young girls pregnant. They cannot get pregnant alone. So behind them, there would be some young men. There may be even adults. There could be sexual assault. It could be a lot of other things. But the thing is, it should break anybody's heart in this country to see a teenager pregnant.
Yeah. So I don't know, in your practice, have you had, how has it been for you? Have you had such teenagers come to your clinic?
Well, when I was in training in Kenyatta, the youngest child we ever had who was pregnant was 10 years old. I know now from media reports that we've had even a 9-year-old get pregnant. The youngest I've looked after in my private practice was 14. The father of the child was 17. So it is true, is a reality. But even as we confront it again, right at the beginning of the program, let us make it very clear that the statistics that is collected out there has a few concerns. One of them is the age bracket. When you take 10-year-olds and mix them up all the way to 24 years, then you're saying from 18 to 24, you already have people, some of whom may even be married and legally so. So we need to be careful how we break down the numbers because it should be below 18, anything below 18. Then is about 18% of the children who are sexually active, which means that maybe 1 in 5 are sexually active. In which case, then it means we have 4 out of 5 who are not sexually involved at that age, and those are people we need to celebrate. So again, remember, if you came to my office and you had cancer, for instance, and it was such bad cancer that statistically I know the chance of survival is maybe 10%. There are two ways I could present that statistics to you. I could tell you, oh, look, my dear lady, your chance of survival is just 10%. You know, you're most likely going to die. You better go and start preparing your issues. The other way I could present the statistics is that 10% of the people survive, okay? 10% of the people survive, and we are going to do everything we can to make sure you're in that 10%. Now, it's the same statistics. The way you present it would either give a very negative outlook or a very positive one. So to the parents out there, 4 out of every 5 children are not sexually active as teenagers, and we are proud of the work you're doing. There is 1 out of 5 who are engaged. We need to find out why and what it is they understand and what they don't understand. Then we do something about it.
Wow, wow. I really like that because I think the way the media probably brought it out, it's very scaring, and I think it would bring a lot of panic to the parents when they hear about those numbers and maybe not hear them the way you're putting them. What do you think?
That is how it is designed. Unfortunately, the studies have been done by people who are interested in selling contraceptives and providing abortion services to our children. And they are out to recruit people to consume their services. And therefore, the idea is to cause panic, to make everybody very scared. And once that happens, then they come with a solution that they call comprehensive sexuality education, which is very destructive because it then encourages underage sex, provides contraceptives to underage children, and we know they'll get pregnant because they can't use those things consistently or properly, and it gives them, customers. So it is engineered to scare people, and it is
Wow.
engineered to scare the whole country, and then now come and push something that is not good down our throat. So that is the reason why it is being presented the way it is, but that's not to say that there isn't a problem.
Wow, yeah, yeah. Because I think, wow, interesting. I mean, isn't that so immoral, Daktari?
Well,
The people. Hmm.
the thing is that we live in a world that has both good and evil, and each one of them tries to market itself. And evil is very aggressive. So we have brought up children and trained them to be good people, but we forget to tell them that the world is not a good place. And that out there you'll find liars, you'll find thieves, you'll have murderers, you'll have a lot of things. Just because I have taught you to be honest does not mean that the world out there is honest. And I think we need to start making this very clear to our children. We need to prepare them actually for battle. They need to be prepared like they're going to fight, because outside of that home is a world full of treachery, full of interests, full of a lot of things, people who want to exploit them. So let the young people know we have trained them to be honest. We want them to be honest. We want them to be upright morally. But the world out there is not like that. There are people who sell exactly the opposite of what the parents are trying to sell.
Wow, wow. Preparing our children for battle.
Yes.
I think that that's a very powerful one. So then, Daktari, because of this 1 or 2%, and of course, teenagers maybe not even getting pregnant, but engaging, who is to blame? I think that's the question which has been being asked. So I don't know from your perspective, who is to blame, Daktari?
I think the person we must blame is anybody who does not speak the truth to this issue of sex and sexuality. And if you look at it that way, then almost all of us have a role to play in this mess. Because understand that morality is about the right, making the right, choosing between what is right and wrong. And you cannot choose between what is right and wrong unless you understand what is good and what is evil. Now, you cannot understand what is good and evil unless you have the truth. You must know what the truth is to distinguish good and evil, because it is truth that separates the two. Now, truth is a spiritual concept. And we are so busy saying there is no God, that there is no need to bring God into our discussions. But without the truth, you cannot define what is good and evil. Now, knowledge then is revealed truth. Every human being has a conscience inside of them that whispers to you when you do the wrong thing. Okay? But
Mm-hmm.
these revelations have been written down. So the revealed truth then is called knowledge. So knowledge is by definition established by on truth. What we have on the internet is information, and information can be false or it can be truthful. So the question is, what is it we are consuming? Until we learn as Kenyans, until we learn as parents to seek out the truth and be guided by the truth in everything that we do, we will never be able to slay this monster. Now, that said, the father is the one who is charged with the responsibility of protecting his family. The father is supposed to protect his wife, is supposed to protect the children, and by extension, to protect the rest of the community. So for me, as far as the matter of teenage pregnancy is concerned, at family level, the buck stops with daddy. So
Wow.
if daddy is there and is doing nothing about making sure his children are prepared for a world that is out there, or daddy is passive, he doesn't care, he doesn't comment, he will not do what, or daddy is abusive, or daddy is absent, then we start having an issue. Now, of course, if daddy is absent, if daddy is not present, is not active, then that spiritual responsibility then falls on the mother. So we have the mother and what it is that she believes in her heart to be true, and what should be done about these matters. Then when you leave that point, you come to the child. The child has been taught something. They have questions they want to ask. Who do they go to seek the truth from? Do they ask from their friends? Do they ask from their parents? Do they go to the internet? Now, once you leave the child, then we go to the world out there, and what is on the internet, what is on our TV screens, what is on the commercials that are being advertised, what kind of picture are we portraying about sex and sexuality, what kind of music is out there, what kind of movies is out there. And when you are talking about children, then it is the parents who bought the mobile phone that the young boy is using to watch pornography. It is the same parent who has paid for the Wi-Fi. The question is your child old enough to be managing these gadgets on their own? You bought the TV, what programs are these that you're watching with your child? What age are they? Can they understand this to be acting, that this is not the real world? So basically, once you leave that realm, you go now to government. And what is government doing to regulate content in TV screens? What is it doing to control pornography and other material that is in the internet? So basically, all of us will have something to do with it. But the bottom line is the truth. Anybody who is hiding or refusing to speak the truth Or is speaking deception into the matters of sex or sexuality is to blame for the mess we are in?
Wow, wow. And we'll definitely come to that part of I mean, the untruths that we possibly tell our children about sex. So now, what is your take, Daktari, on sex education that is taught in schools?
Um, I am not sure whether there is sex education taught in schools. The last I know is there was a program called Life Skills. That is the only education material that is around family life and sex and sexuality. But let's talk about that word, sex education,
Mm.
and let us ask ourselves as parents. You see, school is an extension of parenting. The children are with the teacher for 6 hours. Okay, that is the
Yeah.
time they would have been with the parents. If it was in the olden days, the boys would be with the father, the girls would be the mother, learning something about life skills. They are in school. So technically, all of us as parents must concede or agree to what our children are taught. So that's the first thing, and it is an international right of parents to have responsibility over what their children are taught.
Mm-hmm.
But if you talk about sex education, the question then is, what do you want to teach the child? Do you want to teach the child what sex is and how to have it without getting pregnant, and then try to prevent the pregnancy, and then take medicines to prevent sexually transmitted diseases, or use condoms and stuff? Is that what sex education is? Or is
Mm.
it that we want to teach our children that sex is a gift that we have been given by God, and even though it is pleasurable, its main outcome, or the best outcome you can get out of sexual encounter, is a child, and that a child is a very, very special gift because it represents the future for us, and that the child would require 18 to 25 years of care before they can become independent of the parents. And if
Mm.
they are brought up well, then eventually the society benefits from a well brought up child. So every time you deny a child the father, or you deny the child a mother, or you throw them in the dustbin, or you terminate pregnancies using abortions, then you have failed to understand the gift of sexuality. So if that is what we want to teach our children, and to tell them that this beautiful gift must be then experienced in a secure environment of a marriage, where you have committed yourself to one person for the rest of your life because it takes that much time to raise a child, then we will be teaching the right thing. So the question is, what does sex education mean to whoever is pushing around that word? We don't teach our children how to have sex. That is taught by your spouse. When you get married, you know what to do. Then they tell you they like this, they don't like this, and you can try this, you can try that. The best sex teacher is actually your partner in marriage, isn't it? So what we will be teaching our children is the beauty of sexuality, the beauty of the gift of being able to bring forth a child and bring them up in the way we should. That's what we should be teaching, and teaching them that that gift then it should be experienced within a certain secure relationship that is formalized, so that not only they but the whole community can celebrate.
Wow, wow, wow. So where should sex be discussed? Where should we have, let me use the same word, sex education then? Where should sex be discussed?
You see, if sex education is about getting into family life and being able to bring up children, then the relationship of the father and the mother is the first lesson a child gets. When you bring a child into your life and you're living together as husband and wife, the
Mm.
child actually learns 80% of what they know by observation. This is the way mommy treats daddy. This is the way daddy treats mommy. This is what
Mm.
daddy does. This is what mommy does. All that is part of sexual education, because those are gender issues, gender roles, who does what in the house, who does this, stuff like that. But then if my child does not listen to the mother, then I would insist that they honor their mother. If a child dishonors me, then the mother will insist that the child must honor the father. So again, there is a lesson in there of honoring one another. So remember, all this is about the family structure, and how families, men and women, relate to each other within a family setup. All this is part of education to the child. So if as parents we do a bad job of the way we work, we treat each other in the house, how do you speak to your husband? How do you speak to your wife? How do you speak to the children? When the children make a mistake, how do you correct them? That is already a lesson in sex and sexuality. Now, if we go now to the next point, once the secondary sexual characteristics begin to develop. So remember, from the age of 0 up to 5, there's hardly anything to talk about. From about 5 thereabouts, the children will notice, they'll go to bathe as little girls, little kids, 2, 3 year olds, and they'll notice the girl is missing something, and me, I have something. And they will ask, what happened to yours? Where did yours go?
Yeah.
And the girl may ask, where is mine? What happened to mine? And the issue then is, at that point, all they need to know is, you have this because you are a boy, and she doesn't have this because she's a girl, and that is the end of sex education. All right? There is a difference between boys and girls, so that curiosity dies at that point. The crisis starts now when they become 8, 10 years old, and the secondary sexual characteristics start developing. So the period of adolescence that we have been talking about, as if it is a new species of human beings, adolescence is really just a stage of sexual maturity. So the child is beginning to develop into the process of sexual maturity. So you're coming from a child, you're going to become mature sexually. And that is usually complete probably by 13 or 15 years old. So you're saying a 14, 15-year-old child can actually get pregnant, get babies. We've seen them go down to the age of 9. So at this point, what they need to understand is what is happening to them. So they need to be prepared that, my son, you're going to go through the age of adolescence. Your body is going to change because you're going to become a man. These are some of the changes you might experience. The girl would need to be taken through the issues of menstruation. And usually with girls, it's a little easier because once the breast buds start forming, then menstruation is not far away. So regardless of their age, if you have a little girl and the breast start budding, that's the time to start talking about the issue about, it is important we now start talking about you developing into a woman. And as a woman, these are some of the things we experience, and I want you to look out for this and these signs. So again, that's a stage of development. The little boy will be curious as to why he's waking up with an erection in the morning, little things like those. So daddy would be able to explain those things quietly. So remember, for children to talk to you, then you must have a good rapport with them and be available to speak. So that's the age of sexual maturity, and that's the time now we start talking to them about the gift of conception. All right. So now the way your body has developed, you can now become a father, you can become a mother. If you have sexual intercourse, your body is already ready for you to become a mother, for you to become a father. And we would want you to eventually become parents just like us. But between now and the time you are capable of looking after a child, which means you have finished your school, you have left my house, and you're able to take care of your own business, there is another period of about 10 years, isn't it? because they are 14 and they'll probably finish campus at 21, 22. So there is almost 10 years. During this time, the preparation then should be work very hard in school, get to know what your talents are, choose your subjects, get to burn up this energy, get involved in sports, do something as you start preparing yourself to leave my house. And then we talk to them about friendships. We want you to be friends with many boys, you be friends with many girls, but remember, friendship does not include the act of sex. It's just that you can have many friends who are boys, many friends who are girls. Go and do your activities in a group, do the activities in church, do them in our home as a group where parents are and is supervised. They should be encouraged to interact in safe places where they can be guided. But this thing of one person, this is my girlfriend, this is my boyfriend, and if you talk to them, I'm going to get very annoyed with you. That kind of relationship where you single out one is to be discouraged because it tends to grow into things that are not very good. So it is a it would be a process. It would be done gently over time, depending. I've seen a few cases where one has to speak about it early if the child comes with questions. For instance, there was a little niece of mine who came home. She was in about standard five. Standard five, so she'd be about 12 or something.
Yeah.
And she came home and she asked, can a circumcised boy make a girl pregnant? Now, the minute you hear a question like that, the first thing as a parent you should do is not get annoyed. It should tell you immediately that there is somebody who is talking to your child about sexual matters, and there is information this child has that is not correct, or there is somebody who is trying to seduce them and is telling them the wrong things. So, don't struggle too much with who asked you, who told you that, who are you talking to? I don't want to see you with them. Is the issue of why are you asking that? Then you might be able to hear, so and so told me that this and that and that. If a child comes with a question like that, then you can't wait for them to grow a little older. You'd have to discuss the matters of sex and sexuality from not it is forbidden. It is that the timing is very important because it comes with a lot of responsibilities.
Wow, wow. Allow me, Daktari, to take you back at where you said when the child, you tell the child, when the sexual maturity is happening, maybe up to about 13, you tell a child that this means that you can actually become a mother and you can actually become a father. But then I think there's a parent out there listening, because and I think our issue is, Daktari, me included, is how take us through, how do we then yes, you can become a mother, but then how do you bring that out? How do you break it down for them? I like you, the 5-year-old, you and the 2-3-year-old, you talked about telling them, you don't have, they say, I don't have something, this boy has something, you tell them because you're a girl, because okay, that's fine. But now at that stage of sexual maturity, yes, you're telling them you can actually become a mother. You're now menstruating because you have told them to look out for maybe blood, and so menstruation, the breast issue. So how do you explain to them, how then do they become a mother?
You see, the error that we make at that point is to assume that the children do not know. I think in standard five they've already learned some bit of biology, and they've learned a little something about the life cycles. Male mating. They call it mating. The males mate. If it's children up country, they have seen mating, in animals. It could be a dog,
Yes.
it could be a whatever. The young boy could even be told to take the cow to the neighbors because it is on heat, and he'll go there and he'll see that exercise happening. So the issue about the exact thing that happens may not be necessary, and it may be something that you would walk through as questions arise. The best thing is to trigger questions so that you don't give too much information when the child is not ready. But the thing is that when a man and a woman come together, for me, when I talk to those young ones, the issue is just like animals mate, even human beings have a sexual relationship, okay? And that sexual relationship is how you get pregnant. Now, the other area maybe we need to clarify is that most of the time when people get pregnant and they were not ready, it is they didn't go from the house saying, today I'm going to have sex. All right. So you cannot prepare your child that if somebody asks you to have sex, you say no, because nobody asks for that activity that way. That's not the usual thing, isn't it? The usual
Yes.
thing is we put some soft music, I touch you and what, and eventually things just happen on their own. So the way the young people need to be, the way I would explain it is that do not get yourself in a situation where you become sexually aroused. Okay. So when you are in this state, when you're in this stage of development, if you allow somebody of the opposite sex to touch you, all right, and to touch you in a secretive place, and you are just the two of you, and you start caressing and kissing and touching each other, that is how people prepare one another for sexual intercourse. Okay. And once you're physically aroused, then the reason becomes secondary. You can't think very well when you're in that state. So the best thing to do is never ever get yourself into that state. So when I'm talking to the young people, what I tell them is, if you want to avoid getting involved in sexual activity, then the thing is that you must make sure you do not find yourself alone with a person of the opposite sex, and you do not accept any physical contact that would be sexually arousing, isn't it? So if a boy has asked you to go to their home to study some mathematics, and you're a young lady, and you go there and you find he's all alone in the house, the parents are not there, the house help is not there, the young man is alone, that is a very good point at which to say, let me go and pick up something. I'll come back, and you go away and you tell them, something has happened, I can't come back. The idea is get out of that situation as quickly as possible. So if you want a study partner, then maybe one of the same sex like you. Go to a girl who's in your class, study with her. Go to a boy who's in your class, study with him. Avoid crossing those paths. So identify, start seeing when your security is threatened. Start seeing in a place where you cannot run away, in a place where you cannot scream and somebody can come and help you, in a place where you cannot walk out because somebody has closed the door. Avoid those situations. So that is one. The other one is avoid anything that would intoxicate you. So don't take alcohol, don't take the weed, don't take dawas, don't take anything that will make you intoxicated. And unfortunately, most of these things are not given when you know. So if somebody is trying to take advantage of another, they say, just take this, it's just a little wine, it is not bad, but the person has never taken wine before, and eventually they are compromised. So don't agree to take alcohol. You are told, oh, this, we are just smoking this, it is just a cigarette, or it is shisha or something, but inside there they have put a drug. And before you know it, you're also in a vulnerable situation. If you are going to take any drink, like if you're going to take a soda, then make sure you're the one who opens it for yourself, or it is opened in your presence. You drink it until it is finished before you put it down. You don't take it in bits and walk around, because then something can be spiked into your drink. It is that kind of preparedness that we need the children to be alert of. And that is basically just situational. Maybe when the time comes later, we can discuss about how not to pollute your mind. Because if you don't want to have sexual thoughts, then the best thing to do is don't arouse your mind to sex. So if you are listening to music that is keeping talking about sex and sex and sex, if you're watching pornography and you're watching people having sex, if you're watching movies with people saying "I love you" and jumping into bed the next time, you're reading books that describe romantic life as having sex, then you're polluting your mind. And every time your mind is idle, those are the kind of things that it will go to. So again, you need to clean up your mind. If you're watching or listening to stuff like that, start cutting it off. Start listening to stuff that is clean, stuff that is educative, stuff that is preparing you for the future, that is useful. And then, of course, there is the issue about friends. Who is this that you're hanging out with? And what is it that they bring into conversation every time you are together? If every time you're together, all they talk about is sex and what, and they want you to watch a pornography something, or they want you to dance to a dirty sounding music track, then again, that's the kind of person you want to cut off. You don't want to have people like that around you. So
Mhm.
that would generally be the kind of conversations that one would have. And it can't happen in one night. It can't happen the way we are doing it here. It will be in bits and
Mm.
pieces as questions come along. Take your little son who's 13 or 12 years old, go for a walk with them, go and just talk about family life. What do you think about the girls? What do you think about mom? Have a discussion. And once they come to trust you as a source of truth, then they will come back to you every time they are challenged with a deception.
Wow, wow. I really like how you're bringing it out, Daktari, because I think we think about it like this monster, like I need to do it now, now, now. But I like what you're saying. Also, they will bring in how we receive what they bring matters a lot, because if then we rebuke them, or like, where did you hear that from? Then now, first of all, we've already cut the trust there with them. So it should be as natural as just moving on with life. Wow.
Mm.
Wow. Thank you for that. So I don't know, maybe maybe I would ask you, now that you're in that field, of dealing with women and men. Now, as a teenager, what are the other dangers of engaging? A teenager is listening, so they may get pregnant, or I mean, they could get pregnant or not get pregnant. And of course, there can be also abortion, which we are going to tackle in a short while. But what are the other effects of somebody engaging so early, a teenager?
Well, it's one way of approaching the topic, and I particularly do not like it. I don't think at the age of a teenager threats work. Threatening them and telling them, you could have this, you could have that, all this lousy stuff can happen to you. Unfortunately, from what I have lived through and what I know, those threats don't work. And the reason they don't work is because there is a mismatch between the reasoning capacity of the child and their sexual maturity. So let me put it this way to the teenagers. By the age of 14, 13, 14, you're fully sexually active, you're fully sexually mature, sorry. You're fully sexually mature, and you can actually make a girl pregnant or become pregnant if you are a girl, if you engage in sexual intercourse. And you have all those feelings. If somebody touches you, even if you just receive a phone call from somebody of the opposite sex, there is an excitement you feel inside your heart, especially if you like that particular person. And these are natural feelings where you start feeling attracted to people of the opposite sex. And when you have a friend who is of the opposite sex, you actually feel excited about it. Those are normal, and there is nobody who can tell you that that is normal, abnormal. What we want to train you to do is, how do you respond to that kind of feeling or that kind of experience? So the thing is, the brain is the last organ to mature in the human body. And every time your child is able to sit on their own, then a part of the brain has matured. When they're able to walk the first step, then a certain part of the brain has matured. When they're able to say their first word, another part of the brain has matured. When the secondary sexual characteristics start kicking in, is because a certain part of the brain has matured. That is how adolescence comes in. It's the brain developing, and the part that controls our sexuality is developing. Now, the part that controls our reasoning, the capacity to make good decisions, which separates us from the animals, does not mature until we are about 22 to 26 years of age. And that is the crisis of teenagehood. You have all this arousal and nice feelings when you are people of the opposite sex, but your capacity to make good decisions has not developed and will not develop until you're at least 22 years of age. Now, if you understand that as a teenager, then you need to understand that if you do not accept guidance, if you do not accept to be guided by somebody who cares about you, like a parent, why would your mother or your father wish anything bad of you? The only people who would really care about you are those parents who have cared for you from the time you are a little toddler, and they're taking care of you up to that point in time. Why would your friend who is your age mate become more important than your parents, or be a source of truth compared to your parents? So the first thing I understand is the capacity of your mind to make choices is not fully developed. And if you find something that is confusing, or some statement that you find doesn't sound right, or you would like to know more about it, before you hit that Google button, go and talk to your daddy or go and talk to your mommy. And if you feel uncomfortable around them, then look for an auntie or an uncle who you are able to relate with and ask those sensitive questions. That would be the best thing for the teenagers to understand. Now, let's go back to the question. A young lady who is maybe 13 or 14 or 10 years old or 9 years old, who we have said is sexually mature and can actually achieve a pregnancy, the bone structure hasn't finished growing, and it will not finish growing probably until 16, 18, thereabouts. The minute you get pregnant, then a lot of those things tend to stop. Uh, the bone may not be big enough to allow a baby to be delivered normally. So most of those little children, we end up doing cesarean sections for them. So you are 14-year-old or 13-year-old, you've been delivered by cesarean, you already have a scar, and that is one of the things that is very challenging. But the other one is that even those who do not get pregnant, you can get sexually transmitted diseases, some of which you would never know, or you'd be too scared to go and report, and you end up with infertility. So we have people who are married, who are 30 years old, who are trying to get babies, and when you examine them, you find their tubes got blocked because they acquired a sexually transmitted disease. Probably they didn't know, or they have some other medical conditions that they picked up. You could get HIV/AIDS. It is an incurable disease. You may need to be on medication all your life. But the question then is, what were you seeking? Because if it is pleasure in sex, it lasts 1 or 2 minutes. Carrying a pregnancy will last 9 months. Looking after a baby until they're independent of the parent will require 18 to 24 years. The question then is, this early inception of sex, how has it helped you? How will it help you? In fact, sexual intercourse is the only experience in the whole world that I know about that adds no value to anybody's CV. So if you went for a job and you're looking for at the interview and you want to be an accountant, and your manager asks you what kind of experience do you have, and you say, I have worked 5 years in this farm, I worked another 3 years in this farm, and now I have another 3 years in this other one, so I'm looking for growth. And somebody else comes and says, I have not worked, I've just finished college, then the person who has experience is more likely to be hired, isn't it? Now, if you go
Yes.
and you say, I have all these experience and I have also slept with 20 women, it doesn't make you more employable. So at the CV level of an employment, nobody really cares. Nobody wants to hear that kind of stuff, isn't it? But assume you are also
Mm.
looking for a partner to marry. Now you are 27, you started having sex at the age of 12, and you tell this partner of yours, look, honey, I'll take good care of you. I have slept with 20 women, you'll be taken good care of. What are the chances that they will stay? So the question then is, what was the value of all this sexual experience? Okay. Now, you could also get married and you have slept with Mary, Kamau, and whoever else you think about. The question is, will your partner enjoy sex the same way that other person used to enjoy sex? You may touch them in such a way that they are so disgusted with you, they don't want to ever see your face again. So sexual experience is the only experience that actually adds no value to your life. Now, the other thing I'd like to say in finishing this particular part of our discussion is that there is a politician who passed away a few years ago at the age of 80, and he had a child who was 1 year old. So you're saying this gentleman is 80 and he's conceiving children, okay? So he is having sexual intercourse at the age of 80. The oldest woman who I've ever taken care of who was complaining about complications or discomfort after menopause during intercourse was 68 years old. Okay, so you're saying you're 14-year-old and there are adults who are 80 and 68 years old still having sex, and you're worried about starting. There is no urgency to these things. So that's why it is better to understand the place of sex. So sexual experience is not relevant, is not useful. It will let you down in future. It cause you to have problems. Contraceptives can make you very sick in themselves with blood pressure and other things. They don't always work, so you can still get pregnant and you'll be tempted to start thinking about what to do with the pregnancy. The thing is, it is so much safer to use your time to prepare yourself to be an adult, to be independent of your parents. And then that time, when the time comes and you're ready, then you choose your partner very carefully without any pressure. And once you have somebody, then you're agreeing that we are coming together because we are going to have a family and look after these children together. Then all of us will embrace the idea and will get involved. Now, if you're out there and you're a teenager and you're already having sex, or you have had sex, then remember that that does not destroy your humanity. You do not lose your dignity because of making a mistake. What you do is you choose a different path. If you understand the value of sex and sexuality to give us the gift of a family, then you can stop now and say, I will not watch pornography anymore. I'll stop listening to that bad music. I'll stop hanging out with so and so, and I'll make a different decision for myself. Pauline?
Internet is hello, Daktari.
Yes, I can
Hello,
hear you now.
Daktari.
I can
Yeah,
hear
but
you.
I think I'm having
There
a
you are back.
challenge with the instant. I can hear you, but I can't see you. Oh, now I
Oh,
can see you. I am trying but I hope we are fine now.
yes, you're back.
Wow. Okay. Those ones were strong points. Oh, my internet
Mm.
still.
But I can still see you and I can hear you.
Okay. So I was trying to connect to something else, and yeah, but maybe meanwhile, what I wanted to you to, I think we are a bit stable right now, is to mention, before you do your parting shot, about the reproductive health bill. I mean, it's a bill which has brought a lot of, I mean, arguments, people trying to push it, but our big majority feeling it shouldn't pass. What's your take on that bill?
We were in the Senate a few days ago, and we interacted with Senator Kihika about that particular bill. It is true we have challenges that need to be addressed. There is challenges about teenage pregnancies. There is challenges about surrogacy and all those other things. And the biggest problem with that bill is that it is oriented towards what we call the sexual and reproductive health and rights ideology. And that ideology is completely against what we believe in as Christians, as Muslims, as African people, because its approach to sex is that sex is a pleasure and sex is somebody's right. And if you teach children that sex is their right, and you have a young man who is 19 years old who wants to have sex, and there is no consenting partner of the opposite sex, what happens at that point? And that is how we are saying it would cause our children to become perverts, because then they'll either masturbate, or then they'll rape someone, they may be bestiality, or they'll have same-sex relationships. The ideology is completely counter African culture and is counter Christian, and even the Muslims oppose the bill. So the issue is not that there is no problem. The issue is the foundational principle or ideology of the bill. And what we agreed is that we from the Christian community, we did not agree to give amendments to that bill, because when you give amendments and then they'll go and be discussed in Parliament, you have no more control as to whether those amendments will ever see the light of day. It ends up being the parliamentarians' decisions, what they take and what they will take away. So Senator Kihika agreed to suspend the bill. She's already written to the Speaker of the Senate to ask that the bill be suspended for the time being. We agreed to have a retreat with her team for 2 or 3 days later on at a time to be agreed upon, maybe in a month or two. And we'll go there and we'll look at these problems that we have, and we'll look at the solutions we can bring into these problems, but we'll look at them as Kenyans, as Kenyans, as mothers, as fathers, as people of faith, as people of whatever, coming from whatever region in the country. We look at it and we come up with a Kenyan solution and a bill that will not cause so much heat and tension. And definitely that will not be informed by the sexual and reproductive health and rights ideology. The other good thing that came out of that meeting is that Honorable Millie Odhiambo has a bill that is similar to that one in the National Assembly, and she has another bill that is called the IVF bill, both of them in the National Assembly. They tend to address the same things like the one for Honorable Senator Kihika. And she agreed that she'll bring those bills to the same discussion, so that we look at all the 3 bills together and then come out with 1 or 2 that would basically be acceptable to the nation. So it was a fruitful meeting. There's been a lot of heat before that, but I think we ended on that note. The taste of the pudding will be in what comes out of that discussion, whether we'll be able to agree on the basic issues. And I am very, very, very confident that we shall be able to come out with something good.
Wow, wow. So we definitely wish you well in that whole process. And I know the majority of Kenyans are as well, that it cannot go through as is. Yes, we need our children, that they cannot make, yeah, like I like what you said, it's not African, it's not in our, it's not, I mean, the West, they are able to let very young children say, this is my right, but we can't really do that. I think our culture is rich and we should protect it for our generations to come.
The
Wow, it was
children are just children. Their maturity has not reached the point where they can make independent decisions. And I think even as we discussed rights, if you have an age where your food, your clothes, your shelter, your school, your everything comes from your parent, even if you're the age of 40, in principle, you're still a child, you are dependent. Until you're able to leave your parents' house and take care of your personal business, you have no issues telling us what what you want. You could say, I would like this, but you cannot demand for it unless it is, food or something. But you can't come and tell me that it is your right to have sex and you cannot even feed yourself.
very true, very true. Yeah, I think I really like that. I think I've really enjoyed your discussion. And I think what I picked also is even that aspect of saying that at what point, I think making our children understand even the development. At that point, you still can't make informed decisions. You're still developing. Just having that conversation. And I like the way you have really broken it down to us this afternoon. And I know that parents will continue to. And I want to believe that Tari, it could be also the way we were oriented. Long time ago, parents would not just, it's like children were bringing themselves up. What do you think? There was no such kind of discussions.
Well,
But life has changed.
in the olden days, the issue was that there was no external information. The only information you got was either from your parent or from the neighbor. And everybody had agreed what children should be taught and at what point. So the issue of sexuality was possible to keep quiet about until the point at which you go through your rites of passage. And immediately after the rites of passage, the girls were ready to get married, and the boys would go to become warriors, and the warrior class would come back and they're ready to get married. So it was possible to contain information until the right age. Today, we
Mm,
live in an age where you may not tell your child because you think it is protective, and your neighbor goes and whispers something to them. So we cannot afford to deny information. What we must give is truthful information that is relevant and is can be consumed at every age. Now, if you allow me to just say something small about parents.
yes. Yeah,
It,
actually speak to them, speak that
yes,
could be your word to them. Yes.
it is very important that we do not portray ourselves as angels. It is very, very important for parents to be vulnerable to their children. Um, the like my first son was conceived before we got married. Okay, and actually he was born before we did our formal wedding. And I'm having a discussion about him and about sexual purity and how he should wait until he is married before he engages in these matters. And he would remind me that he was in our wedding pictures, isn't it? Now, it is at that point that you accept and you become vulnerable. I made mistakes in my life. I did not manage to wait until the time I was supposed to wait. I did the right thing when these things happened. But why would you want to put yourself in a similar situation? What if that is not the woman that I had wanted to marry? What would happen? You would have a child who you are not able to take care of. And these are situations that are real. You have a child growing up somewhere else. You have no control about what they're taught. You have no control about their moral formation. You have no control about encouraging them. It is not a good state of affairs. So accept that you are not an angel. Accept that you made mistakes when you were a teenager. And now, when you're a little older, you look back and you say, maybe if I had listened, it would have been different. Okay? Why would you want to make the same mistakes that I made? So that again is very important. So the parents who have made mistakes in their life, don't shy away from being vulnerable and accepting that there were decisions that you may have made that were not very good, but that immediately you understood what was happening, then you made corrections and you're asking them not to take the same path.
Wow, wow. Love, I mean, I like that one. Just being truthful to our children. Where we made mistakes, we share. We may have made them, we don't want them to go that way. Amazing. Thank you for that vulnerability, Daktari. So there's a teen also watching. What would be your parting shot for them?
My parting shot for the children is this, that sex is very good. And we would really want you to grow up and have families, have a lot of sex so that we can become grandparents. Our problem is not with you having sex. Our problem is the timing of that sexual intercourse. Now, remember that even though sex is pleasurable, the gift that we have is the gift of giving new life, is bringing new life into this world. That is what sex, the greatest gift you can get from sexual intercourse is to bring in a new life into this world. And that is supposed to be something you're happy about. That is supposed to be something that you should be prepared to look after. So there is a lot of preparations that need to be made to make you socially independent before you are ready to take up that responsibility. So you are below 18, you can drive a car. You are not allowed to drive a car because your reasoning capacity has not reached a point where you can be trusted with a motor vehicle. Once you reach 18, you still can't drive. You have to go to driving school. You have to do this. You have to pass a test. And even then, you must be guided for another 1 or 2 years as you drive along until you get enough experience. It's the same thing about raising a family. It requires that you prepare for it. Go to school, study hard, do this, and get yourself out of home. In the meantime, use your energy to do other things. Um, get into sports, especially physical activity. They're very good to burn up that extra energy. Learn to relate healthily with others. It's good to have a friend of the opposite sex, 2 or 3 of them. Don't promise them marriage. Don't involve yourself emotionally. Just hang out with them so that you can understand that boys and girls think a little differently. They react a little differently. These things help with relationships in the future. But the minute when it comes to the issues about dating, dating is supposed to be about choosing a mate, choosing somebody with whom you are going to have children with. Dating should happen just a year or two before you're ready to get married. That's the place at which dating comes in. So don't start having dates. Don't start asking for money to go to a movie with one girl. Don't start asking to go and buy somebody lunch at the age of 14 or 16. This is not yet the time to do these things. This is the time to develop yourself in preparation for the future.
Wow, wow. Thank you, Daktari. I would have wanted us to continue going and going and going. But I think the most important thing for me is how now we cannot think about sex as a taboo anymore to be discussed about. And yeah, that's one thing I really like about that, that you have empowering parents, empowering young ones. So it was a joy for me to host you this afternoon. I'm really happy, and thank you for our viewers for listening in. I'm sure others will continue listening in over the weeks, and it's going to be something that will help people, help us to just change the narrative, and I really like what you started with. We shouldn't be alarmed in a way that we cannot do what we need to do. We need to do what we need to do. So we wish you well, Daktari. Thank you
Thank you
for
very much.
just sparing this time. I think one of the things I was saying, Daktari might be called in to go and deliver a child, but I'm right now. I'm happy that not that I don't want children born, but I'm happy that this time was available for you to be with us. So thank you very much, Daktari. Thank you,
Yeah,
Elizabeth,
thank
for
you.
doing the translation for us. Thank you. So have a lovely week and God bless. Bye bye.
Bye bye.